What's up, guys, and welcome to the Go Accomplish More podcast. Today is our very first episode, and I'm super excited to be here and to connect with you. I have been building my marketing agency for almost 20 years now, and more recently, GoStaffy, which is a multiple seven-figure staffing agency. Almost 2 decades in which I've experienced some incredible seasons of growth and some seasons that really tested me. This podcast is a place where I want to share the lessons that came out of those seasons, the things I had to learn the hard way, and the conversations I keep having with agency owners and people who are actively growing in their business and in their life. So if you're building an agency and you care about growth, freedom, and accomplishing more, you are in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about why every agency owner must be the face of their agency. If you run an agency and you're not the face of it, you're making growth harder than it needs to be. You see, being the face of your agency isn't about ego, isn't about influence or becoming an influencer. It's about trust. It's about building trust. It's about building leverage, and it's about building freedom. So in this episode, I'm going to break down why being visible matters more than ever, why most agency owners avoid it, and how to do it in a way that doesn't burn you out, right? Because a lot of times, as you know, when you're running your agency, a lot of times we don't want to add another layer because we're afraid of being burnt out. And I get it. So let's talk about the real problem, right? Most agencies don't actually have a service problem. They have a visibility problem, right? In a crowded market where everyone sounds the same, being invisible doesn't make you humble. It makes you replaceable, right? If you're going to be like every single other agency and very similar to them, the client is going to see you that way, right? So number one, it's very important that you cannot be behind your agency. You need to stand out. You can't hide behind the logo. You need to be the leader that's going to be that thought leader that your ideal client is looking for, that you can create the solutions for their problems, right? So if you're offering the same services and the same promises as the other agencies or your competitors, then you're not standing out, right, in a crowded space, especially now, right, with AI, with so much technology, right? You need to be that consultant for your client. You need to be showing up, right, with your personal brand. You need to show up and be the face of your agency. So why good work alone doesn't stand out anymore? And it's so true, right? A lot of times back in the days, you know, you would get a client the ROI they needed, and that's important. I'm not saying don't get the ROI. I mean, the ROI is very important, but more than that, the client, they need to know who you are, right? So you can have the best service, you can have the best team members, you can have the best systems in place, but if your client doesn't know who you are, right, then you're the best kept secret, right? Where no one knows where you're at. So there's an example that I want to share. When you put yourself out there, things start happening. I go to trade shows a lot every single year. And I have been putting myself out there as an agency owner by doing videos, by doing podcasts. And I've been doing consistently for the past 3 to 4 years. And I know that every time I go to a trade show, every single time I go to a trade show, numerous of people come up to me like if they already know me, right? They either say, "Hey, John, I saw one of your videos. I love your golden doodle." And it makes it a lot easier even to start conversations, right? And little do I know is that those conversations end up being a potential discovery call and then a potential sale. And there wasn't no much conflict. It was very easy, right? We rolled into it. It was an easy conversation I had, but it started out because I put myself out there in a consistent fashion where the ideal client knows who I am already. They know what I like, they know what I don't like, and there's a connection, right? And there's tons of many other real life examples of other agency owner friends that I know. And I have seen a pattern that if you put yourself out there consistently and you're creating content where it's speaking to your ideal audience, it's going to open doors. It's going to allow your agency to grow. So why does this mechanism, why does it work, right? People don't buy the best agency anymore, right? We're competing against other agency owners that are putting themselves out there, right? Those are the ones you have to be worried about because the majority are not. So that's why this is a perfect opportunity, even in a crowded space right now, is that the people that show up and put themselves out there are going to have more leverage, right? They're going to have more leverage. And like I said, people don't buy the best agency anymore. They buy the agency that's showing up more in front of their face on their socials, showing up on the organic side, right? But it starts out by you putting yourself out there. So visibility creates trust, and trust removes friction from every part of the business, right? And sales conversations change, right? When trust exists. When you're having a sales call, and it's happened to me numerous of times, like our pipeline is always filled because we have a good organic reach. Whenever I'm talking to a potential client, right, on a discovery call, literally I have had that sales or that person, that potential client say, hey, John, you know what? You don't need to explain to me anything. I am ready to buy. I have been following you for the past year. I trust you. Not only have I been listening to your videos, but I have had other agency owners that have recommended that you are a great source. I want to do business with you. But it started, you know what? It started with me putting myself out there, right? Being consistent with the videos, with the podcast. So what does that do? It makes sales conversions, like I said, change. So more sales conversions. Also, shorter sales cycle, right? How many of you know that when it comes to digital marketing, sometimes the sales cycle can be even 3 months, right? You get on a discovery call with that person and then you explain the whole contract to them. And then they tell you, hey, let me think about it. I'm going to talk to my partner. And then they end up not doing business with you, right? I believe that if they know you, if you have that know, like, and trust factor, the sales cycle is going to be a lot shorter, 100%. There's going to be less convincing, right? More alignment. And I believe that this is the new way of marketing that's been happening for the past decade, right? Most agency owners that are winning have a personal brand and they're putting themselves out there on a consistent fashion because they're getting more organic leads coming in from that. Why do most agency owners avoid putting themselves out there? You see, most agency owners don't avoid content because they don't understand it. They avoid it because of fear of judgment, fear of looking bad, fear of wasting time on the wrong things. Most agency owners don't put it as a priority, right? They don't think that blocking 2 hours a week to create content is actually going to push the needle for them. They don't think that. They think it's just a service that they have to do because someone is telling them to do it, right? A coach is telling them to do it. But little do they know is that could be their number one strategy if they're consistent in doing it. They think the reason why they're not doing it is that they just don't want to be an influencer. They feel like, you know what, I'm not that influencer that comes out. And, I don't want to be dancing on videos. And we're not telling you to dance, right? This is about you coming out consistently with video and you're creating a solution. You're talking about pain points. You're talking about solutions to pain points that your ideal client is going through. Maybe another excuse is, I just don't have the time. That little issue is costing them growth in the end. So how can being the face create freedom, right? We've talked about freedom as well. And being the face of your agency doesn't add work. It actually removes friction, right? When people already trust you, the sales part gets easier. Clients are more aligned and opportunities come to you instead of you chasing them, right? I believe that when you do a video, right, and you're talking about not only about business, but you bring a little bit of your personal into that video, what you're doing is creating a connection with someone else that may have similar insights with what you're saying. And that can be the connection that will create that bond that will lead to the discovery call and then the actual sale. And then what happens is that if you have a good service, which I hope you do, right? Because it's not just about putting yourself out there. You want to make sure that you have a good product and a good service. Once you deliver, then that person is going to recommend other people. So I believe that building your personal brand and being the face of your agency is the stepping stone of referrals coming to you as well. So you start building a good referral system and a good inbound inbound leads coming in because of the action that you took, right? So you're going to have fewer objections. You're going to have stronger referrals, less explaining, more momentum, and you're going to have in the end more freedom, right? In the end, and that's what we're looking for, right? So how do you do this, right, without burning out? The biggest mistake agency owners make is thinking personal branding requires more effort. And in reality, it works best when it's simple, repeatable, and built around your life. The last thing we need, right, as agency owners is just to do another thing in your agency. I'm sure some of you here are wearing multiple hats. You're doing invoices, you're doing contracts, you're involved in somewhat of the fulfillment, or even if you do have a team in place, right, where you have 10 or 15 team members working in your agency, you as the agency owner still have somewhat multiple hats that you're wearing. So the last thing you're probably saying is like, John, I just don't want to do videos. I just don't have the time, right? How can I add this, right, without burning out? How can I add this element into my agency without burning out? So very simple. You document, right? Document, don't perform. Every single day you're doing something, right? Whether you're going to a meeting, whether you're in a client call, whether you're talking to a team member, maybe you're training someone, maybe you're hiring someone, document that. Right at that moment, record that Zoom call. The other thing you can do is one platform is enough, right? A lot of times we overwhelm ourselves and we say we have to be in every single social platform. We need to have the YouTube channel, the TikTok, the Instagram, the Facebook, but find out where your ideal client is, right? In our world, it's in Facebook, but we do come out on all the social platforms. What we do is that all we do is that we primarily put the same video on Facebook and we tweak it a little bit for Instagram, but it's the same video. And we use that same video for YouTube, for TikTok, and all the other platforms. But I know that my main platform is Facebook. So start with one or two platforms, right? You can even start out with one lesson per week. One lesson per week is enough, right? You can maybe have a series of things that you're talking about, but focus on just what's one pain point that you can talk about that your ideal client is going to really enjoy listening to, where they can really have some meat of what you're saying, and they're going to look up to you for that, right? And systems beat motivation, right? If you have a good systems in place, right, and you know what you have to do, it's going to be great for you, right? I mean, you're going to be able to. It's not going to feel like a burden, right? As long as you have the right systems in place. So, like today, I want to leave you with a few practical things you can actually take with you. Not to turn you into a content machine, but to help you start becoming the face of your agency in a way that it's sustainable, right? And I'm going to give you just a practical guide that you can do today. It's going to be a checklist that you can grab and you can run with so you can take action after this episode. Because the goal is, if you're listening to this episode and you're not taking action, then you're doing it's not going to do you any good, right? It's going to feel good what I'm saying, and you're probably saying, John, you're right. But the goal here is we want you to take action. I want you to take action. Number one on the checklist is pick one platform, right? Or two platforms, one or two platforms, whether LinkedIn or Instagram. And I want you to be consistent with those platforms. I want you to make sure that you post, if it's going to be daily, that you post daily. If it's going to be every other day, that you post every other day. But be consistent. And you're not going to see anything change in a month or 2 months or 3 months. just be consistent in creating good content. All right. Number 2, record what you're already doing. Just document what you're already doing. Don't reinvent the wheel, right? Lessons, you can do lessons from client calls, things you'd tell a younger agency owner, right? That's great too. You can actually, you're always further than the next person, right? So always remember that when you're consuming, right? Readers are leaders. If you're consuming on a regular basis, if you're learning, you're reading a new book, you're listening to a new podcast, you're consuming that so that you could teach others, right? Teach others what you're learning, right? So that's the purpose of when you're growing and reading, consistently, is so that you could be a light to others. You could help others in the journey. And then no scripting or no performing. Just be yourself. Get the phone and start recording on how your day was, right? Literally, you're documenting how your day was. What were some lessons you learned throughout the day? What was the last book you read that has that has been very impactful to your life? So as every day, as you're going on in this journey, you're going to be documenting your life. And that's how you're going to be able to create content. Okay. And then keep the tool stack simple, right? Use your phone, use natural light. Make sure you get a good mic. That's something I highly recommend, but don't wait to get the fancy camera. You don't need that. Nowadays, the cell phones nowadays are really good. They have a very good camera. I have the iPhone 16, is amazing phone, right? Amazing camera. So make sure you have, right, the good phone, a good mic, and good natural light. The other thing you can use for apps is we use Riverside whenever we're doing the podcast or whenever I'm interviewing someone. So if that's something that you want to do as well, you can use Riverside or Zoom for long. If you have a meeting, you can record that Zoom call. When it comes to Riverside though, I highly recommend, just like I'm doing right now, right? I'm doing a solo podcast, and that's a great way to create content, right? You can create a solo podcast where you are talking about a subject for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and you can grab from that content, you can grab a lot of short form content for social media. Not only are you going to use that recording for the podcast or for YouTube, right? But you can break it up into micro content for Reels, for YouTube Shorts, right? So make sure Riverside, I highly recommend it for that, because it automatically even breaks it up for you. You can also use a note apps for ideas. Like we use Granola, which is, I highly recommend it, granola.ai. And what it does is that it grabs your mic. It grabs whatever you're speaking from your mic. So if you're having a discovery call, you're having a meeting with a client or a team member, it's actually grabbing the content. So not only are you recording that Zoom call or recording it on Riverside, you can have Granola on so it creates the outline. Then you can grab that outline, put it on ChatGPT, and create content from that, right? Number 4 is follow a boring weekly structure, okay? And I'm saying it boring because it's going to sound boring. You want to make sure you have a clear SOP, right, that you're following. I believe in structure, right? And sometimes if you don't have the right structure in place, it's not going to motivate you. So make sure that you follow that SOP. So maybe your SOP could have one long recording per week, right? You want to record one long form content, right? You can do it on Riverside, like I said earlier, record on a subject where you're constantly sharing, and that recording can be about 30 minutes to 40 minutes long. And then from that recording, you're going to grab micro content for Instagram, for YouTube Shorts and whatnot. So one long form content per week. Then you're going to break that into 2 or 3 short clips, even probably more, even maybe 4 or 5 short clips from that long form content. And you know what? Reuse the same core message, right? Because a lot of times, I'm sure it's happened to you, you don't know what you want to share, or you've run out of ideas on what to share. So one tip I give you is that reuse the same core message, right? Whatever your core message is. I usually work with pillars, right? I not only talk about digital marketing, I not only talk about operations, because I love operations. I love to talk about digital marketing. I also like to talk about hiring, about different strategies. But I also like to talk about my other pillars that make me human, which is health and fitness, self-development. Sometimes I talk about my faith, right? And God. So find out what your core pillars are. So like that, there's always something you're talking about, right? If you're walking your dog or you want to talk about family, you can tie that in, not just about business, but you can also tie it in with your personal side. Because remember, people do business with people. They don't do business with business. They do business with people. So the more human you are, the better, right? So number 5 is delegate, right? This is the most important thing, right? If you can, right? If you have the money and you have the budget, you can hire a video editor, right? Or a marketing assistant that can use the right tools. There's a tool that I forgot to mention that it's called Opus Clip, right? Where when you record a long form video, right, which is about 30 or 40 minutes, Opus Clip is pretty cool that you can just upload that video into Opus Clip and it will break up the clips or that long form video into short form content, right, into 40-second videos and all that. So you can literally hire either a video editor or a marketing assistant that can use apps like that. And of course, if you have a video editor that knows Premiere and is a little bit more advanced, even better, because they can really give you the quality content that you're looking for. But right now, your number one objection or the number one goal for you right now is you want to be consistent. Don't focus too much on the quality of the videos. I want you to be consistent, right? And in order for you to be consistent, if you have the budget, make sure that you delegate it to a video editor. And you can literally hire a video editor overseas, and you can hire them part-time even, right? It doesn't have to be full-time. Hire them part-time, 4 to 5 hours, a day, and they're going to be able to do the stuff that's going to take you a lot, that's going to take you a long time to do, right? And then your number one objection, your number one goal is just to record. That's going to be your number one goal, is to record and send it to your video editor. What you could do as well is, if you go this route where you're hiring a video editor, is you can create a Dropbox or maybe an iCloud on your phone, like on your iPhone. And whenever you finish recording anything, you can literally just upload it into that Dropbox or iCloud folder, and your video editor is going to have access to that content, and they can go ahead and start doing the edits and whatever needs to be done. I recommend, of course, having some type of SOP for that video editor. So like that, it just makes it easy for them to follow, right? So remember, consistency becomes automatic, right? The more consistent you are, it's just going to become second nature that you need to create content, even when you're on vacation, even when you're at work. Think of it that you're documenting. Every day is an opportunity for you to document. And a lot of times you might say, but what I'm doing is not significant. Why should I document this? Believe it or not, most of the time what you think is not significant, the other person is going to say, wow, thank you for sharing that. That really helped me. So don't forget that. And then the last thing is commit to 90 days. Commit to being consistent. And don't judge yourself. Just be consistent. Become the authority, right? Do the reps. And I guarantee you that it's going to become second nature. And once you complete those 90 days, it's going to be second nature. Like, you're going to be able to do it. It's going to be like brushing your teeth. You're going to want to create content. It's going to be part of your life, right? So I want to repeat all 6 really quick. So number 1, pick one platform, right? Number 2, record what you're already doing. Number 3 is keep the tool stack simple, right? Whatever you're using, Riverside or Zoom or your phone, just grab your phone and get what you need with a good mic, and that's going to work. Number 4 is follow a boring weekly structure, an SOP that you can guide yourself with, right? And number 5, if you have the budget, make sure to delegate it. Delegate it to someone that can do it. So like that, you can just focus on recording, and you can just send that video, that raw video, to the video editor. And number 6, commit to 90 days that you're going to thank yourself for building that habit. So remember, you don't need more content. You just need to be consistent, right? You need to be consistent in what you're doing. And this is how you start becoming known without burning out. So being the face of your agency isn't about attention. It's about building trust, right? And trust creates leverage. If you want easier sales, better clients, and more freedom, this is the work that you need to do consistently. Guys, that's all I have for today. I was super excited to share this message. I believe that it's a great episode to start with, right? Especially now in the new year, being the face of your agency is going to change your agency. It's going to bring more growth to your agency, and it's going to bring more fulfillment as well as an agency owner. Because a lot of times we're in it and we feel that we're not contributing to to this world that we live in, right? That's all I have. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with another agency owner. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Go Accomplish More podcast.